Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're diving into DAOs,
Okay.
specifically the Toronto DAO.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you've shared some audio from a meeting
Right.
between like developers and stakeholders,
Yeah,
and it's fascinating. It's like brainstorming meets real-time problem solving.
I can imagine.
Yeah, you got developers, stakeholders, even a student intern,
Wow.
all hashing out the membership process for this DAO.
That's a good mix of people to have in the room.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So it really highlights like that collaborative nature of building a DAO,
Yeah,
bringing together like all these different perspectives to tackle these complex challenges.
absolutely.
So for context, the Toronto DAO's mission is to attract, nurture, and keep tech talent
Okay.
right here in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Their ultimate goal, making the city a global tech hub.
I like it.
Yeah. But back to this meeting, they're wrestling with some pretty fundamental questions.
Okay.
Like, how do you actually prove someone's a Torontonian for membership?
Interesting question.
It's way trickier than you might think.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tricky in a decentralized world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a great example of where the technical
Yeah.
meets the social
Yes.
in DAO design.
For sure.
You can build the technology, right?
Right.
But then you need to think, how are people actually going to use this?
Yeah.
How do you design for like trust and participation?
It's one of those things where you don't really think about it until you actually have to implement it.
Totally. So let's get into the nitty-gritty
Okay.
of this conversation.
Yeah.
One of the first things they tackle
Right.
is the sign-up process itself.
Okay.
Their initial idea was pretty bare bones, just two buttons.
Yeah.
Apply or pay $1,000.
Oh, wow.
So to the point.
Yeah, like jumping right in.
Right. And that right there highlights a key challenge.
What's that?
They were essentially asking for money
Yeah.
before even confirming someone was eligible for membership.
Yeah, you gotta make sure they're actually from Toronto.
Right. Like, hold on. Let's make sure you're actually from Toronto before we start talking money.
Exactly.
So they quickly realize
Yeah.
this isn't very user-friendly
Right.
and decide to simplify things.
Okay.
They opt for a single become a member call to action.
Makes sense.
Much better flow.
Yeah, streamlines it quite a bit.
Confirm eligibility first,
Yeah.
then move on to payment or onboarding.
Yeah.
But even figuring out that eligibility piece
Okay.
was a whole other can of worms.
I bet.
They go back and forth
Yeah.
on how to verify Toronto residency,
Right.
what they jokingly called
I like it.
proof of Torontonian.
Proof of Torontonian. I love that.
Right. And let me tell you, some of their initial ideas
Okay.
were a bit, well, let's just say easily gamed.
Ah, I see. So they had to think carefully.
Yeah. So this brings up a crucial issue for DAOs,
Yeah.
balancing inclusivity
Right.
with security.
Yeah. How do you make sure that people aren't
Exactly.
gaming the system?
How do you prevent people from like creating fake identities to
Mhm.
gain influence?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It's that classic Sybil attack problem.
Classic problem in a decentralized world.
They were literally throwing ideas at the wall, seeing
Yeah.
what stuck it.
Just brainstorming.
Phone area code, stated address, device location.
Interesting.
They even considered requiring in-person meetups
Oh, wow.
or connections on Bright-Eyed, which is a decentralized identity platform.
I see they were thinking outside the box.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh,
And each of those methods
right.
comes with its own set of pros and
Of
cons.
course.
Phone numbers can be spoofed, addresses can be fake, and even device location can be manipulated with a VPN.
Yeah, you can't fully trust any one of those things.
Nope. In-person meetups are great for community building,
Mm-hmm.
but not very scalable.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a real balancing act.
For sure.
Too strict, and you risk excluding legitimate members.
Yeah.
Too lax, and the whole integrity of the DAO is at stake.
Yeah, the whole thing falls apart.
Right. And this tension is really palpable in the audio. You can hear them wrestling with these trade-offs in real time.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now, they also get into a discussion about membership tiers.
Okay.
Initially, they only had a paid tier,
Mm-hmm.
but then they decide to introduce a free tier
Oh, okay.
and a pay-what-you-want option,
That's a good idea.
which is a smart move to encourage wider participation.
Yeah, definitely lowers the barrier to entry.
Right. Not everyone can afford a paid membership,
Right.
and this allows people to contribute at a level they're comfortable with.
Exactly.
But what I love
Yeah.
is that sprinkled throughout all this technical talk
Mm-hmm.
are these little moments.
Okay.
They give you a real sense of the people involved.
The human element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds you that you're listening to a group of passionate individuals,
Mm-hmm.
not just lines of code.
Right.
They're building something they believe in.
That's cool.
For example, There's this hilarious story about a Nigerian scammer
Oh, no.
who tries to convince the developer
Okay.
to apply to a Chinese brand.
Oh.
It's so outlandish, you just have to laugh.
I can really imagine.
It's a reminder that the tech world is global.
Yes, very much so.
And that scammers are unfortunately everywhere.
Sadly.
And there's the student intern
Right.
who's actively participating in all of this.
That's great.
And it turns out he's working on a project
Oh, cool.
for this blockchain developers group
Mm-hmm.
called Blockchain Developers United.
Catchy.
Right. Which is really cool.
Yeah.
It speaks to the DAO's commitment to fostering talent
Definitely.
and providing opportunities for the next generation of developers.
Yeah, get them in early.
Exactly. And they even talk about potential blockchain developer internships.
Perfect.
A fantastic way to nurture that talent pipeline.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and did I mention the yerba mate?
No.
The developer whips up this super strong batch, and they have a whole conversation about caffeine highs and different compounds in yerba mate.
That's funny. I like those little sidebars.
Yeah, it's those little human moments
Yeah.
that make this deep dive so engaging.
Yeah, you can relate to it more.
Yeah, even amidst all the technical discussions.
Right.
There's room for shared experiences.
Yes.
And a bit of fun.
A little bit of levity.
But then, hold on tight.
What?
They go on this tangent
Okay.
about AI sentience.
Ooh, interesting.
They're pondering whether AI can truly be considered sentient
Mm-hmm.
and what that might mean for the future.
Big questions.
It's a fascinating rabbit hole, especially with all the advancements in large language models.
It's a question that keeps coming up more and more these days.
Oh, yeah. And it shows how the Toronto DAO is grappling with these bigger picture issues, not just the immediate technical challenges.
Yeah, thinking ahead.
So you can see this conversation is packed with insights into building a DAO.
For sure.
It's not just about the tech.
Right.
It's about community governance
Mm-hmm.
and navigating this constantly evolving landscape of blockchain and decentralized identity.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. It's about designing systems that are secure and accessible
Yeah.
and fostering a sense of trust
Right.
and shared purpose.
Yeah, it all comes back to that.
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty
Okay.
of their proof of Torontonian system,
Yeah.
let me ask you this.
Okay.
Would you feel comfortable sharing your address or location data to join a DAO?
That's a good question. It's something to think about.
It is. It's a crucial question to consider.
Yeah.
What are you willing to share to participate in a decentralized community?
Right.
What are the trade-offs
Mm-hmm.
between privacy and access?
Yeah, that's the balance right there. It's a question a lot of people are asking these days with DAOs popping up everywhere.
For sure.
Right.
All right, so let's get back to the Toronto DAO and their quest for that perfect proof of Torontonian system.
Okay.
They ultimately decide to create this point system.
The point system.
Yeah, with different pieces of, like, evidence
Okay.
carrying different weights.
Interesting. So like a scoring system.
Exactly. It adds all this nuance to the verification process.
I see.
Instead of a simple yes or no, it creates a spectrum of confidence.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So picture this. They're literally huddled around a whiteboard, assigning points to different criteria.
I can see it now.
So let's break down some of this evidence
Okay.
and see how it all adds up.
Let's do it.
Having a Toronto phone number was a big one.
Okay.
They gave that a whopping 10 points.
Wow. So that's a pretty strong indicator.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a fairly strong indicator of local presence,
Mm-hmm.
even in a world of, mobile numbers and virtual phone systems.
Yeah, those can be tricky.
Oh, yeah. Then you've got your stated address.
Okay.
Assuming it's within Toronto,
Right.
that gets you 3 points.
Okay. Not as much.
But if you can provide actual proof of address, like a
Right.
utility bill,
Okay.
you earn a solid 15 points.
That makes sense. They want to see something concrete.
Right. And that's where things get interesting.
How so?
Are you comfortable sharing a document? That ties you to a physical address.
That's a good question.
It's a trade-off between privacy
Yeah.
and proving your eligibility.
For sure.
Then there's device location,
Mhm.
which they scored at 5 points.
Okay. Middle there.
But they were quick to point out
Yeah.
that VPNs could easily be used to circumvent this.
Of course. Yeah.
Good reminder
What's that?
that any digital verification method has its limitations
Right.
and can potentially be manipulated.
You can't always trust what you see online.
Nope. They also considered in-person attestation
Oh, interesting.
by existing DAO members.
Okay.
This earned you a score of 10 points.
So bringing in that human element.
Exactly.
I like it.
This introduces like trust and social connections.
Yeah.
As part of that verification process.
Which is really what DAOs are all about.
Right. But it sparked a debate.
What was that?
Should any member be able to attest to someone's residency? Or should there be a special role?
I see.
For like trusted verifiers?
Yeah, you got to figure out who you can trust.
It's a great question.
It is.
How do you establish trust within a decentralized community?
Yeah.
And how do you prevent like collusion?
Right.
Or someone abusing that attestation system?
Someone vouching for their friend who lives across the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a challenge with no easy answers.
For sure.
Bright ID verification was another option they explored.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of Bright-Eyed.
This got you 3 points.
So not as much as a utility bill.
Nope. For those unfamiliar,
Right.
Bright ID is all about connecting with people you know in real life.
Okay.
To build a web of trust.
So like vouching for each other?
Exactly. Like a decentralized version of that.
Interesting.
The more connections you have with verified individuals, the greater the confidence the system has in your own identity.
That makes sense.
They even discussed requiring connections specifically with other Toronto DAO members.
Okay.
Adding an extra layer of relevance to those connections.
A community within a community.
Exactly. And of course, they couldn't resist bringing social media into the mix.
Oh, I bet.
Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, LinkedIn.
Usual suspects.
All the big ones.
Yeah.
Each platform earned you 1 point.
Okay.
Up to a maximum of 5 points.
They're not a ton of weight, but still a factor.
Right. It's like saying, look, I'm active online.
Yeah.
And I'm publicly associating myself with Toronto.
Putting it out there.
Right. It's not the strongest form of proof, but it adds another data point to the overall picture.
Adds to the puzzle.
Exactly. They even consider Gitcoin Passport.
Oh, yeah.
Which is this interesting platform.
What's that one do?
It aggregates various online identity verifications.
So it pulls everything together.
Exactly. That earned a similar score to social media.
Okay.
It's like a one-stop shop for verifying who you are across different platforms.
Interesting.
Then there's the official route government ID verification.
Oh, okay.
That came with a hefty 10 points.
That'll do it.
Right. But it also raises questions.
Like what?
What about data privacy? And should a decentralized system rely on centralized government-issued identification?
Yeah, that seems a little counterintuitive.
Right. It's a complex issue.
It is.
With no easy answers.
Lots to think about.
And finally, the simplest piece of evidence, just stating that you're from Toronto.
Really?
Yeah, they gave this a score of 2 points.
So basically nothing.
Basically, it's the least verifiable.
Yeah.
But it's a starting point.
Okay.
It's a declaration of belonging, a statement of intent.
I like that.
So with all these different pieces of evidence
right.
and their corresponding points, they arrived at a threshold
okay.
of 16 points to be eligible for membership in the Toronto DAO.
So you need a combination of things.
Yeah, you need a combo of factors to prove your Torontonian status.
Interesting.
It's not just about saying you're from Toronto.
Yeah.
Or even having a local phone number.
Right. You got to build a case.
You need to build a more substantial case.
I see.
And they specifically highlighted the importance of those in-person meetups.
Oh, right.
Attending 2 meetups, they suggested, could be enough to reach that 16-point threshold.
Makes sense. It's hard to fake being at a meetup.
Exactly. You can't fake being physically present at a meetup in Toronto.
Right.
Unless you're willing to go through some pretty elaborate lengths.
Fly across the country just to attend a meetup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They weren't naive, though.
Okay.
He acknowledged that even this system wasn't foolproof.
Right. There's always going to be ways to try and get around things.
And that's the beauty of a DAO.
What's that?
It's iterative.
Right.
They can adjust the point values, introduce new types of evidence, and refine the system based on their experiences and feedback from the community.
Constantly evolving.
Exactly. So what do you think? Does this point system strike a good balance between inclusivity and security?
I think so. I mean, it's a creative solution to a challenging problem.
It is. It's certainly unique.
Yeah, it reflects those unique considerations that come into play when you're building a geographically focused DAO.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up,
there's
one more fascinating detail that emerged from this conversation.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Remember how they were initially asking for $1,000 for membership?
Right, for that paid tier.
Yeah. Well, it turns out
what?
They were planning to mint an NFT.
Oh, cool.
As proof of membership.
That's a popular approach.
It is. It's a common use case for NFTs within the DAO ecosystem.
Yeah. Represents membership voting rights, access to exclusive content, all sorts of things.
But, and there's always a but in tech development, They ran into a snag during testing.
What happened?
Well, they discovered that the app wasn't saving the user's location data.
Oh, no.
That's a critical bug.
Yeah, especially since location is a key component of their whole system.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of thorough testing.
For sure.
Even with the best intentions,
yeah.
you can run into these unexpected roadblocks.
Right. Especially when you're dealing with complex technical systems.
Especially when you're dealing with all this new tech.
Yeah.
It's uncharted territory.
It's a reminder that even the most experienced developers can make mistakes.
Happens to the best of us.
What matters is how you respond to those mistakes.
Yeah. Bounce back and keep iterating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they didn't let it get them down.
Okay.
They acknowledged the bug and expressed confidence in their ability to fix it.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We've seen how the Toronto DAO is tackling membership verification, how they're incentivizing participation, and how they're exploring the use of NFTs.
Right.
We've seen their creative problem solving and their willingness to adapt.
It's impressive.
But there's one more element I want to touch on before we wrap up.
Okay, what's that?
It's about the student intern.
Oh, right.
And his involvement with that blockchain developers group.
Yeah, that was cool.
And this whole conversation about internships. It's like they're not just building a DAO, they're building a talent pipeline.
Dang. For the entire Toronto tech scene.
It's a smart move.
Absolutely.
No.
They see this student not just as an intern, but as like a potential future leader.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to that long-term vision, that desire to create something sustainable and beneficial for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
They get it.
Yeah.
Investing in the next generation is crucial for the success of the DAO and the city itself.
It's a win-win.
It really is.
Okay.
Pretty inspiring stuff.
It is.
It highlights the potential of DAOs to create that positive change that extends far beyond their initial scope.
It's not just about them.
Right. So wrapping all of this up, what does this all mean for you? We've seen how building a DAO is this messy, iterative process.
Yeah, lots of trial and error.
And it constantly reinforces how important it is to think about the human element alongside all the technical stuff.
Absolutely. You can't forget about the people.
This deep dive into the Toronto DAO has given you a unique window into that process.
It's been fascinating.
It has. We've seen the dynamic interplay of technology, community, and governance in action.
And how they all influence each other.
You've gotten a glimpse into the real-world challenges of designing for trust, inclusivity, and security.
In a decentralized world.
And even in the midst of those complex discussions, there's still room for, humor, for shared experiences, even philosophical pondering.
A little bit of everything.
Exactly. This conversation has equipped you to not only understand the Toronto DAO, but to think critically about how DAOs in general are designed and governed.
I think this has given people a lot to think about.
I hope so. Now, here's something to consider.
Okay.
If you were designing a DAO, what would your proof of membership look like?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is. What would be most important to you?
What would I prioritize?
Exactly. Would you take a similar approach to the Toronto DAO? Or would you focus on something completely different? What values would you prioritize?
Okay.
How would you balance security and accessibility? And what challenges would you anticipate along the way?
Lots of questions to consider.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But that's the beauty of DAOs.
What is it?
They push us to rethink those traditional models of organization.
Right.
And explore new ways of collaborating and creating value together.
Breaking down the old system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This deep dive has given you a glimpse into that messy, but ultimately exciting world of building a decentralized future.
I like that.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one building the next groundbreaking DAO.
Could be anyone listening.
The possibilities are truly endless. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Well, that went by fast.
It did. Until next time.
Okay.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Love it.
In the world of DAOs.